Welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. All right, for today's episode, we have a repeat. Justin Williams, he's a good friend of mine, so I'm having him on again just because he knows so much and has grown a business so much in so few years that I really wanted to talk with him about, who should be on your team and when should you hire them. So I'm going to ask him about his, how he got started and how he grew so quickly and was able to build a business that didn't need him operating in it constantly, doing all the things, wearing all the hats. So I've got him on the show again, and we're going to discuss that topic and have him just guide us through the process of figuring out what the game plan is going to be for your business, executing it, and then figuring out who to bring onto your team and when. So we'll just get into that. And, Justin has a great blog, podcast, and everything at houseflippinghq.com. And he also started a new podcast with his wife, 8 Minute Millionaire. And that's at 8minutemillionaire.com. And that's a great podcast. You should definitely check it out. It's got a lot of great short podcast episodes with fantastic information. And so I'm super excited to have Justin Williams on the show today. And be sure to go check out FlippingJunkie.com to subscribe and get more information and things about what we're doing and everything that we've got going on. We also started an Instagram account, instagram.com/flippingjunkie, and you see some pictures of some of the stuff that we got going on. But thanks again for listening in, and enjoy the show. All right, Justin, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to be here, man. Thanks for having me back.
See, now you're going to try to talk softly. We had some audio issues here, and Justin was joking.
Thanks, Danny. I'm so happy that I could be back on your show. You're my bestie.
And I'm sure it's still way louder still than me too, even just when you talk like that. But it's good. It's good. People can hear you and understand you. I already gave a great intro about things that you've got going on. The House Flipping HQ, 8 Minute Millionaire, which is an excellent podcast, and all the things. But for the people that maybe haven't heard you on the previous episode, you're the first repeat on this podcast, first person I think that I've had twice. Congratulations, yes. You made it.
Yes.
You've achieved your life's goal and dream. But no. And so I wanted to basically, and I had said already in intro that, I really admire what you were able to do in such a short amount of time and how much you're still doing and exponentially growing. And so I wanted to have you on so that people that are getting started sort of have knowledge of what's possible.
Sure. And
to know that something like this is possible. And I wanted, if you'd be willing to share with everybody sort of, when you got started real quick. And, I'm sure you were doing a lot of this in the beginning. You didn't just start doing this business and hire out a bunch of things immediately, I wouldn't think. And so do you mind sharing that, your start?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just finished last week. We just had our first 7-figure flipping mastermind meeting, which is my high-end mastermind group that I just recently started with Andy McFarland. And we focused on, have you ever seen the show The Profit?
I haven't.
The Profit, The Profit. But this guy goes around and takes people's businesses and he totally takes them from being sucky to being amazing, basically is what it comes down to. He gives them money. He buys equity in the company. He says, I'm in charge. Whatever I say goes. And he totally transforms their companies. But he focuses on 3 things. He focuses on the product, the process, and the people. And as you know, I'm a big systems guy, and I'm a big hiring people person. I leverage and having other people do things for you. So the product, what's cool in real estate, we get a cheat. Like, we don't even need to figure out the product. That's been tested and proven. Like, everybody either has a house, rents a house, owns a house, or should own a house, right? Or rent a house or something. So real estate has been proven time and time and time again. There's tons of people like you and me out there doing it who can show you how to do it, who can teach you the tricks. You don't have to go recreate this thing that doesn't exist, right? So product, check. And then you got the process, which I know we're not talking about right now, but the people. So in this mastermind meeting, we were able to take people. We had everyone get up there. They shared their business, and these are already people who are being already pretty successful. You know, they have to qualify to get into the group, and it's like all we have to do, and we've already been working with them on this one-on-one, but all we had to do was go through each person, make sure they had the right process and the right people. And literally, not to oversimplify this, but if you can get those two things right in this business, you will have $1 million or multi-million-dollar business once you get those things done. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you're going to be rich overnight, because that is not easy. Figuring out your right process and figuring out your right people is not necessarily easy. But I put that, I want to make sure people understand that. So when they recognize that it is hard, we had someone get up there, and it's amazing. And within, 2.5 months of joining the program, they've already hired 3 people. And
wow.
One of the people they had to fire, and I could tell they were a little frustrated because that one didn't work out. And I'm like, well, just realize, like, being successful in business, like on a big level, is not linear. We're so taught that we're always, it's ingrained in our minds that you do something and you get paid for it, like trading hours for dollars type thing, and we just expect this certain result. But in business, you have to invest in the people and the process, and it takes more time at first. But if you have the perspective of, once I get this thing right, it's like game over. I can have anything I want in life. Okay, you cannot fail if you have those 3 things, and in our case, the 2 things. So it was a really cool perspective to just be able to work with him and say, okay, we got this person, and then everybody in the group at the end was like, hey, these are the people I need. Once I get them, then, and I have my process down. And these are people who already understand real estate. They know the fundamentals. They know all that, right? And if you don't know the fundamentals, then you need to learn the fundamentals. And I think that's basic. We don't need to go over that right now. But once you get these things, then it's game over. So I tell you this once again, so you don't get frustrated when it does take a little bit of time and effort and energy. Because if you're the person, when you're sitting there saying, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is when most people quit. This is when 99% of the people give up and say, oh, this is hard. This is what I'm not going to quit. And you keep going. You keep making it work. You keep finding those right people to put them in place and create a business, not just a job. You create that machine that will work for you. Then you have financial freedom. Then you have wealth. And we're not talking just a few bucks here and there from rental properties. We're talking, and I don't want to get all weird, like as much money as you want, but literally, like, you can create your own wealth from there. Okay. So people is huge. People is super important. So when do you hire those people? How do you hire them? How do you go about that? Okay, we can kind of get into that. There are some things that you need to learn how and do yourself before you can really hire someone to do them, but not everything. Like, you do not need to stuff 1,000 envelopes and lick 1,000 envelopes to
glad you brought that up. Right.
To be able to teach someone how to do that. You should not be swinging a hammer. People, my one of the quotes that I've become well known for is, millionaires don't swing hammers. I just said it like on a whim, and now like all these people are quoting me about it in my community. Like, if you are out there doing the work on your houses, first of all, please stop. I hope we're beyond that point. I hope everyone by now knows you don't need to do that. I've never done that. I don't know anything about fixing up houses. Like, I know what it needs to look like. I know what it costs. But I don't swing a hammer. Okay, I've never fixed things. I don't know how to fix things. I'm not handy. Do not fix your houses, please. You don't need to do that first to teach someone how to do that.
Well, a good point to make, though, about that as well is, people hear that and say, oh, well, I don't plan on doing that anyway. Or, if you're somebody out there that is handy and does do that and enjoy doing that, you might think, well, I enjoy doing that, so I'm going to do it anyway. And, and that goes for everything else, because my problem is I'm not handy at all, which is not a problem. It's actually a good thing, because I didn't get up in there and swing hammers. But my problem is I do know how to do software. And so, a lot of these things like the website, all this kind of stuff, like I spend all this time doing things I really shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
Because I could be working on my business instead of my head down in the business. And so, it's not just fixing up the houses, but some of the other aspects that people maybe know how to do. And so, they always feel like they've got to do that.
Yeah, that's perfect. One of our 7-figure flipping students, Kate Hall, she made $150,000 last year, and this was she had done a little bit before, but then she had her own. Anyway, that was literally from restarting with my housewarming formula program like a year ago. She made 150 grand, and now she's working towards that 7-figure business. It's pretty funny because everyone comes to the meeting and they have their goals. Like her goal was to make like $200,000 this year, but now when she left, it's now $1 million, right? And it was just like crazy, the power of association. It's kind of a side thing, but and being around those right people and just understanding, once you understand the process and the people and how you can plug and play that into your business, your mind just goes and just explodes. So having that been said, though, she loves working on her projects. And I said it straight up to her. I said, okay, Kate, that's awesome. And I will support you if you want to keep working on those projects. But my question to you is, do you love working on the projects more than you would love making $1 million this year? And she just laughed, you know? She's like, heck no, you know? 'Cause it's like, okay, I don't love it that much. I said, okay, then you will probably have to sacrifice one for the other. So you need to choose what you want to do. And she's like, hey, done. You know, it's like that easy, right? So I call bullcrap when I hear people say they love it, because there's a lot of things I love to do, but I love spending time with my kids a lot more. You know, I love being able to coach and teach other people. I love being able to serve and give to my community and, you know, help organizations like we're able to do last year with OUR and save children that are in slavery, because I decided that I was going to be a business owner, not just create a job for myself.
All right, so let's get down into the real nitty-gritty of that, though, of actually setting something like that up, just so that people know to sort of have that plan to realize that they can do the same thing. And maybe everybody's path is a little bit different, but to at least have an example of somebody's path. You know, who did you first hire? What kind of positions did you first hire out, besides like envelope stuffers and things like that?
Sure. So I've been doing real estate for 9 years, but I'm going to go back 5 years. I just had a partnership that I split up, broke off, and I needed to kind of start from scratch, if you will, right? So I hired Vanessa, and many of you heard of Vanessa probably. She's like the legend of she runs my entire company at this point. But when I first hired Vanessa, I hired her to do basically the grunt work. Her job was to do utilities. Her job was to do paperwork. Her job was to do like lock boxes, like go visit properties, put signs in yards, like all the stuff that like is just so tedious and time consuming, but really easy to do. So I wanted her to take that off my plate. I'm like, okay, that takes like 10 to 15 hours of my week. I don't want to deal with it. That's what you're going to do. Okay. So she started out there. And then I thought, okay, what is one thing that also takes a long time that she can do whenever she doesn't have something else to do? Because the last thing you want to do is hire somebody and then have them not have a lot to do, and then your job becomes trying to give them busy work. That's like the worst thing ever. So she was a realtor before, and she kind of knew how to use MLS, but she did not know how to analyze properties as an investor. So I taught her that, and that did take some time. The other things didn't take any time to teach her, but that one thing did take some time. But I thought, you know, if she's able to learn how to do this for me and kind of sift through and make offers, then I can approve them once they've already been accepted. How many of you out there would love to be able to just be handed offers that are already accepted, and then you double check the numbers rather than sift through the minutia of the MLS or take the calls or all this stuff, right? So, and that's when we were buying houses on the MLS. Right now, we're not buying as many houses on the MLS, and that is comparative today to I would have had her taking all the calls, sending out the marketing, taking the calls, making the offers, and then bringing me the deal once it's under contract. Okay, so she was my first hire, and we had her just doing all those basic items.
And how did you, before we expand on that and go further from that, how did you set out to find somebody like that? What did you do to find her?
In her case, all we did, we put it out on Craigslist. We got back 100 resumes. We immediately eliminated 90% of those. In fact, I had my wife went through like all the ones just bad spelling, bad this, whatever, like just didn't look like a joke, gone. And then I read through 10 of them. I wrote questions, emailed 5 of them with questions, got follow-up questions, narrowed it down to the top 2. Vanessa was the first choice. Met with her at Starbucks, hired her within 20 minutes, and we got started. She had never been in my office. I didn't have an office at the time. I worked from my home. I didn't even have a business card. She's like, do you have a business card or a website? Nope. And I'm like, dude, let's just start it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then boom, here we are 5 years later. She runs my entire company.
Right. So when she was working with you, part-time, and you were still doing everything. So you were still doing everything else. I mean, as far as actually going out and making offers and managing the rehab crews. I
got very quickly, I had her making those initial offers for me. And so I was managing rehab crews and dealing with the money. When I say manage rehab crews, I have an interesting way of managing. I'm a very system oriented. So it was more like I would manage them from afar. I would let the agents and my general contractors rehab each other. They probably need to rehab each other. I would let them manage each other. It's kind of like we have in our government, like checks and balances, right? Could you imagine if just our president was in charge to do whatever the heck he wanted? It'd be a mess, or vice versa, right? So it created this checks and balances where I had this general contractor that I had a very firm discussion with up front and relationship saying, hey, we expect top-notch quality. We expect you to do this, and this. But then I would have my agent go by every once in a while, check on things, and do the final walkthrough and take the final pictures or have those ordered, right? So I was still the guy, though, that was talking to them, confirming that everything was done, getting them paid. When I say getting them paid, I still had someone else pay them, but it was like I was still talking to them a lot, and there were the issues that would come up and all this stuff. So I remember the day, I think it was probably almost a year after I hired Vanessa, where I finally said, okay, you're doing this as well. And it was really hard because the contractors, do you think they all called Vanessa right away?
Oh, no.
No. And at the first few times, like I would still take their calls, or after they call a bunch, I'd take them. Like, oh, okay, they really need me. How we always do. Like, okay, maybe I'm the one who needs to do this. But it wasn't until I had to let myself get incredibly uncomfortable and feel like maybe something bad was going to happen, or they weren't going to want to work with me anymore, because I couldn't cut Vanessa's legs out from under her, that then they had to call her because they had no choice. And I put her in charge of paying them. Automatically, like, they realized I was serious. And I have not, I spoke to maybe like one contractor, one conversation in the past, like 3.5 years. I mean, I just don't talk to contractors anymore at all. So. Wow.
So what do you think the majority of your time back then was spent doing? What would you say you were doing the most of back then?
After I hired Vanessa, or after I gave her the project management stuff?
Right, between the two times. I mean, if you remember.
I mean, as you leverage out things, your capacity and ability to do things just continues to grow. So I just continued to get educated. I continued to learn different methods. I was still doing all the private money raising at the time, and working with the hard money lenders and all of that. And then eventually we, made our next hire and whatnot. But I was able to really focus on the business. I mean, I feel like so much times like, well, what is my job if I give this away? It's like, you are the business owner. Right. And that takes time to put a business together and to continue to look for new education and new opportunity and keep an eye on the market and make those final crucial decisions and manage your team and work with them. But it also eventually will give you some freedom, and that's okay. That's the goal, right? So yeah, that's where I focused.
Yeah, and that's something for a lot of people to realize, is that, most investors, the path that I took and most investors take, is that they put on all the hats, they do all the work, they maybe hire some things for certain positions of things that are real busy, that they maybe don't enjoy doing, but then, and they feel like, well, everything's under control, I'm doing well. We're doing enough houses, everything's kind of good. But there comes a point where people stop growing. Like, they just don't have the time to continue growing, to keep learning. They feel like they've already kind of mastered it, when really nobody ever masters anything. You've got to always be continuing to grow and learn, and improve your processes. And I think, so many people just stagnate. And I'm glad to hear that you weren't doing that. You didn't just take the time off. I mean, you kept trying to improve.
No, I mean, I definitely, took some time off, but, no, I love learning. I love progressing. I love growth. There was a time when we moved here to San Clemente a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, and was like our business was on autopilot, and it was fun for a while to go surfing and hang out and stuff and just work a few hours a week. But after a while, you don't feel that value. And that's when I started educating, because I needed something more. But I believe in continual growth and progress and learning and development. So.
Right. So, okay, with Vanessa on board and starting to manage, the rehab crews and realtors that were sort of managing each other, what did you do next? What was the next step after that?
Well, I mean, eventually I gave, Vanessa everything. I gave her, she was in charge of working with hard money lenders, and eventually I even gave her my private money lenders. Now when someone emails me and says, hey, I've got a couple $100,000, I'd like to invest, can you help me? I just carbon copy Vanessa and say, Vanessa can help you out if we have a house available. There you go. That's it.
Right.
I don't have time or the desire or need to manage that. So after a while, I started giving Vanessa all this stuff. She needed an assistant. And so then it was really cool because she was able to hire someone to do all of her grunt work, like the utility, all the same stuff I hired her for. Right. She then was able to hire and get someone else to do that, which allowed her to do more, right? And when I hired Vanessa in 2010, we only did a handful of houses. But guess what? The next year we did 60 houses. Do you think she was maybe a part of that equation? She took all this stuff from me, which allowed me to grow bigger, think bigger. That's when I thought of, I came up with bigger partnerships with private JV partners and created systems because I was able to actually think. I think a lot of times we just don't come with these ideas because we're in the grind every day. We don't have time to think of these things. And then the next year, we were able to do 120 houses because of these things that we put in place. So, yeah, I mean, we hired Vanessa, got an assistant for her, and then eventually, 2.5, 3 years ago, even sooner, we had hired a project manager, but that guy, he didn't work out. An acquisitions guy, which was actually my brother. We hired my brother 3 years, not Steven, my other brother Derek, 3 years ago, and that didn't really work out either. But then 2 years ago, we hired Kale as an acquisitions manager. And that's worked out really well. And then we moved on to project management. We got more, but now he's going back to the acquisitions. So I know I kind of just threw out a lot over there, but I know. But yeah, I mean, you just keep building it out. You just keep doing what makes sense.
What I got from that was that you didn't always just happen upon the perfect people and the perfect places and positions. No. You dealt with problems. And
yes,
again, it's that thing where people hear something like this, your story, and maybe feel like it all just happened very easily for you. You got to think that's a span of several years, 5 years.
Yeah.
And there were ups and downs, there were challenges.
Absolutely.
Completely along the way. But you had that plan, that outline of everything you just said was the key points that you made sure that you hit. And that's really the beauty of it.
Yeah, I've had so many employees over the years. I could go on and on about the different businesses and different employees I've had and ones that worked out and ones that didn't. But I don't let that get me down because I know that I want to grow multi-million-dollar businesses. I'm not interested in just creating a job for myself. And so I understand that's what it's going to take, and I'm willing to deal with those kinds of things because I know that's where I want to go. So
right. Yeah, and that's something, with planning out a business the proper way of setting up a business and having even the 5 or 10 year plan. I think most people getting into real estate, I would probably say 99% don't stop and think, where do they want to be in 5 or 10 years with the real estate, right?
For sure. Yep.
I mean, because it can be, if you plan 1 year on doing 10 deals, the next year maybe 20, you're going to get to a point where you're like, well, what am I going to do once I get to 5 or 10 years? I mean, if most people don't stop to think that, so they don't, have that sort of running through their mind about what they need to do to maybe get it to that level.
So do you want me to drop you some gold bombs real quick here?
No, we don't those on the podcast.
Okay. If you guys want to hear gold bombs, come over to my podcast.
No,
I'm just kidding. So this is kind of what we broke down from the mastermind meeting. And your house flipping or wholesaling business basically breaks down into acquisitions, project management, and then fulfillment, right? That's selling the house, transaction coordinating, dealing with title and escrow, all of that stuff. So you can basically have who's your first hire? It's hard to say. I say hire a grunt work person, right, to take care of all the things that just take forever. And then that person can become your the person who takes care of all the transaction coordinating, all that stuff, or acquisitions based on their experience, or they can do a part of acquisitions, because acquisitions, eventually what will happen is you'll branch out into someone who's basically taking calls and sifting through all the, because in today's market, it's more of a direct seller market, right? I mean, there are certain markets that you can buy houses on the MLS, and that still works in certain areas, but not necessarily mine so much. So these are the different roles of what I see. This is what I told this guy. I said, if you fill these 4 to 5 positions, you will have like $1 million business. And this guy he does a lot of marketing, right? So I said, you need someone who is sifting through the calls, basically. Then you need the closer, the person, the acquisitions guy who's just dealing with people who are solid leads. He's not spending every moment of every waking day talking to these people who are just calling to complain or non-motivated sellers. He's just talking to solid leads. So the call sifter, whatever you want to call that, the filter, the acquisitions manager who's dealing with solid leads. This guy's doing wholesaling, okay? And then he had the transaction coordinator, and what was the fourth one? I'm forgetting what the fourth one was. I don't even know the fourth one, but just those 3. Let's just do those 3, right? If you can fill those 3, I guess one person would have to do marketing, but marketing doesn't even have to be full time. But if you can basically fill those 3 positions with solid people, you can have a dang solid business. I mean, this is assuming that you know the fundamentals of, AR, analyzing deals and all that. But if you can fill those positions, I mean, that's pretty incredible. I guess the fourth one would be, if you had a house flipping business, would be project manager. That's where I came up with the 4. So.
Right. And so basically, it'd probably be sort of hard pressed to go out and hire all those people unless you built up to a certain point where it makes sense to have all those people, because you wouldn't want to end up in the spot like you were talking about with Vanessa when she was part-time, whereas she was full-time at the beginning. You would have been spending too much time just trying to keep her busy.
Yeah.
And so you sort of have to just gauge.
I wouldn't hire all those at first. Depends on your situation. But it's good to have that end vision, right, of where you want to go. Just like the E-Myth, they teach you these are the things you need, and then you're all of them at first, or you and your partner are all of them, and then one by one you start to fill those. And once you fill those, it's almost like the world is your oyster. I mean, it's like, I won't say game over, but fill them successfully, right?
Right.
Once you fill them successfully and you have the correct process that is converting, like basically, let's talk about wholesaling, right? For every $1,000 I spend, if I know that I'm making 5, my only problem is how much money can I dump into the bucket, right? It's going to give me back that kind of a return. And so once you are able to nail that process, then it's just getting the right people. And most people just try to do it all themselves, and then they just end up exchanging their time for dollars, and it just doesn't, you can't scale that. So.
Right, when you wake up one day and you realize that you built yourself a job when the whole purpose was getting into this was to have the freedom, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question too, because I think this comes up when people, think about bringing somebody on to train them in their business. There's this concern, like maybe this false warning, or this false problem that they think that they might have. They worry about where, they're worried that maybe they're going to train somebody, they're going to quit and go off on their own and become your competition.
Could happen.
What's that?
It could happen.
Right.
I would say I wouldn't worry about that at all. I mean, I've never had that happen, but it could happen.
Right.
That
doesn't mean don't do it because you're just afraid that might happen, right?
Yeah, people who have that scarcity mindset. This is something else we talked about at our mastermind. It's like when you're scared, when you constrict, when you hold on, and you're like this. It's small, right? When you let go, you open up, and it's big. So I see people do all the time. They're at the very beginning. There were some people like, "What if this? What if that?" And you could sense the fear, and I'm just like, "Stop!" Like let go of the fear. Who cares? Move forward. If someone works for you and they quit, you've learned from that. People go to school for 5 to 8 years and just to learn. Like you're learning. Who gives a crap? Like your real life experience, you are learning. If someone goes off and competes against you, who cares? I don't even care. Like, if Kale were to go off and blow up his own business, I would be super pumped for him. But the thing that you'll find is that most people are not like you. You are an entrepreneur. If you were listening to, you are probably an entrepreneur. And most people don't think that way. You think they do, but they don't. So most people, they don't need that. And what I call them entrepreneurs. People in my business, I have employees and entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are people who may not necessarily be an entrepreneur. They're not going to put it all out there on the line and go for it. They need some security, but they will take ownership. They will go above and beyond. And that's Vanessa and Kel and those guys. And those guys will blow up your business, you know? And you just got to stop worrying about what if. I mean, do I have a conversation with them that, hey, the goal here is not for you to go out and do your own business? And I say, let's have a 3-year agreement of understanding that you're going to be working with me. And then after that, we'll kind of discuss it and go from there. And so we do have that agreement of understanding, but at the end of the day, I can't hold them to that.
Right.
And if they do go off and do their own thing, that's fine. But I'm thinking about all the people that have worked for me. I have had probably 50 different employees in different businesses at different times. I cannot think of one, not one, I'm still trying to think about it, who has gone off and tried to do what I was doing. So take that for what it's worth. Like, I used to worry about that stuff. I don't even worry about it anymore. It's like, if they want to go do their own thing, good luck to them, you know, good for them. And in most cases, like, literally, I care so much about Vanessa and Kel right now. And hopefully they're not listening to this because I don't want them to, but I'm just kidding. If they did go off and do their own thing, at first would I be a little like disappointed and frustrated? But ultimately, like, I would seriously be so happy to see them succeed. And I think once you change that paradigm to where you really do, we all talk about how we want to help people and this and that, but when you really do have that focus, like, you don't care about those things as much. But I do think the discussion is important. It's not like, hey, I'm just trying to train you. And also, one other thing I'll add is, maybe if you're concerned about that, don't go to like RIA meetings or people who are actually out looking to become an investor to create someone to work for you. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know, but when you find people who aren't necessarily looking for that exact thing, it can work out. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't worry about that really.
Right, and I like your mention about the, you know, let's plan on 3 years commitment, sort of, where, you know, we're going to be working together and know that I'm going to help you grow, and you're going to help me grow this business together. We're both going to learn together and grow this thing. And they, like you said, ownership. It's like they do have ownership. They feel ownership in creating something, and then, you know, setting the expectations. Because when people, you know, if you're not used to hiring people, you know, the big thing is knowing that people need to know what's expected of them. If you might have it all together in your head and planned out a certain way, but they can't read your mind.
Yeah, that's huge.
All right.
I think there are so many people out there that could be amazing employees or entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of poor ways about going about managing them and setting up the right expectation. And a lot of times we want to point outward, like there's no good help out there, but it's really us. And when we focus on us and what can we do different, it makes it so much easier to hire people, I believe. People all the time, how do you find your team, Vanessa, Kel, and now Kyle, who runs my online business, and they're just blown away. And, you know, believe me, they are amazing people. I'm not, but I allow them to be amazing. I guess that's the thing. Like, I believe there's so many amazing people out there, but you've got to allow them to grow and to become amazing. So.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you've shared what I wanted everybody to get a grasp of and to sort of have in their mind and know that you need to have the bigger plan. You know, have a plan to grow things and know that it doesn't have to just be you running around, being the person marketing, being the person answering calls, going to look at houses, making offers, taking contracts, title companies. It's a million things. You don't want to be doing that. I would rather
die. That sounds horrible.
No, but you've been there. You've been there. You've experienced it. You know what it's like. You know. And, but it's good to have that hope, to know that, you know, if you know about it, and it's all about, you know, it's the whole ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, you're never gonna. But if you don't even know to ask, and that's what we're doing with this episode.
Yeah, just don't be like 99% of the people think the way 99% do, and that's why they are where they are. But if you're listening to them, you're going to be like them. So just know that the successful people are willing to let go. They're willing to outsource. They're willing to get help. And at the beginning, it feels like it's a setback, but in the long term, it's not at all.
Right. Well, thank you very much again for being on the podcast, Justin. I think a lot of great, what'd you call it? Nuggets of wisdom.
Nuggets of gold.
Nuggets of gold
bombs. I don't know.
Now everybody's going to expect gold nugget bombs on every episode.
Keep them coming, man. Keep them coming. You already do.
Yeah. Hey, so how can people get a hold of you? How can people find you if they want to find you and talk with you some more or get some of your educational stuff?
Sure. houseflippinghq.com is our headquarters, no pun intended. But houseflippinghq.com. Then we have the House Flipping HQ podcast. And then our flagship coaching program is houseflippingformula.com. I don't know when this is going out, but we will be reopening the doors here in a few weeks. And then if you are experienced and really want to take things to the next level and aren't afraid to pay for some one-on-one coaching, it's not cheap, so please do not apply unless you're serious. You can go to sevenfigureflipping.com.
Great. All right, Justin, we'll have a good one, and I'll sure be talking to you soon.
Okay. Awesome, Danny. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye. All right, another great episode with Justin. Hope you guys saw all the value in all of those things that we talked about with seeing what's possible and seeing what you should have in mind as you grow and when you find yourself super busy, wondering how you're going to take care of all the different things that has to be done. And we'll keep that in mind and have that come up so that you know that there is a way to grow this and treat it like a real business. And so there it is. But next week we'll have another great episode following along in this series that's getting you going and setting up your business correctly and making it a go of flipping houses. So thanks a lot for listening into the Flipping Junkie podcast. Be sure to check out our real estate investor websites at leadpropeller.com. You can find us facebook.com/flippingjunkie and instagram.com/flippingjunkie. And also we have a real estate investor CRM software system for keeping track of leads, doing follow-ups, etc. You can find that at reimobile.com. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to subscribe on iTunes. Have a good week.